Wholeness, welcome to Notes of Nara. This is Naja Rashida here. I first off want to just share with all of you, thank you so much for your kind words. As you well know, if you've been, subscribed to my channel or if you've watched enough of the messages that I upload, I'm very neutral when it comes to what I do or how I do my YouTube thing. It's very minimal. So I really appreciate you all for showing up just to hear, a message, a reflection, an interpretation. I appreciate it. I appreciate you. I appreciate the time that you put in. This could be entertainment for you. This could be something useful or medicinal to the spirit. So I really appreciate you. Um, hmm. So, yeah, I truly receive your kind words and from coming from a neutral space or the space of neutrality, I like to call it. And so today's video, yes, when someone mentioned that my cup seemed like it was a bit empty, and I must be transparent and real, and yes, my cup is empty. No need to worry though, because I am planning to have a few days off after tomorrow and taking a bit of a break and just to hit that reset button before the beginning of March, because March is the first month of the true year. If you study, just look into it, okay? Yes, all of us, we abide by the Gregorian calendar for sure, but there's many different ways of interpreting the cycle of time. So today's topic, again, we're going to continue with the month of February where we're focusing in on the inner child. And something kind of, either the messages will come up, through dreams or through meditation or after recitation of a mantra, or just throughout the day or some kind of external inspiration. And today the phrase, what came through wasn't quite clear. And I think that there's a reason for that, right? My current emotional state of mind and my current emotional state of mind, my state of mind and my state of heart and my physicality, it's a little down in the dumps. So that could be a lack of clarity. But then on a much higher note, a metaphysical interpretation, this is what was trying to come through today. As adults, we have this superpower where we can reconstruct, review, reestablish, redefine our his story, our her story, our narrative of our childhood. Once we connect to the magic of the inner child, the voice of the inner child, the spirit of the inner child, we can redefine, we can reshape our interpretation of what the who's, the whys, the whens, the wheres, right? And listen, I'm not talking about building this delusional Peter Pan-esque version of life to escape. I'm not asking myself or you, viewer, to practice, that art of delusion and, and illusion. No, be real, be true, be honest about how you feel when you connect, or how your inner child feels when you are reviewing a memory, a troubling memory, a traumatic memory. We can redefine what has happened to us, why we believe it has happened to us, and in that way we are processing unhealed issues. I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a counselor, I'm not a neurologist, I'm not a neurosurgeon. However, in my line of work and I will say professions that's crossed my path, I have a lot of experience dealing with psychology of people. I would have to say probably 65 to 70% of what I do is dealing with the psychology of people as an educator. And when I worked in healthcare, that too was a dominant thing. When you're sitting down, you're taking care of patients, and you're making that human to human connection, psychology plays a role. And psychology and spirituality are very much, they go hand in hand. They're very, psychology and spirituality are like, it's a very teeter-totter type of dance between the two. Because you can get so locked in defining the meaning of things that you get lost. Like, the meaning could be staring you right in front of your face, but as a psychologist, you get lost in it because you're caught up in the definition. And then as a spiritualist, you can get lost in it too. You can over spiritualize something to oblivion, spiritual bypass, right? Spiritual bypassing is a real thing. You spiritually, you do a whole spiritual bypass thing, and you bypass that meaning, that spiritual meaning. It's this beautiful dance of studying and regrouping your own psyche, your own mentality, mental state. And I think it's incredibly important to acknowledge the spirituality and psychology, and acknowledge the psychology and spirituality. That's why I feel so pulled towards archetypes, because they're very real aspects of consciousness that rule our decision making consciously and our subconscious existence. What we do not see rules the scene, has a lot of power. Scientists are always obsessed about evidence, observation, the physicality of everything, proof, results. There's nothing wrong with that. But when we're talking about inner child, we're talking about things that have been suppressed, oppressed, stuffed away, skeletons in the closet. We're talking about that. I'm going to take a nice big gulp from my carbonized water. And no, not it's not like soda water. It's filtered. Oh. Usually you want to drink room temperature water, but I don't know, when you're like kind of dehydrated like I am right now, water's water. But drink filtered water. So, anywho, so yeah, I think, if anything, in my spiritual life is very, very simple. It's very minimalistic, very, very simple, and truly not a lot of hoopla, not a lot of va-va-voom and ritual. It's all about the internal for me. And the psychology is so fascinating, because when I am surrounded by other human beings, young, old, right? It doesn't matter. But I'm working with them, and I'm building these relationships on a day-to-day basis, personal, professional. It's so fulfilling for me, because it allows me to better understand, overstand myself. When you have a deeper, comprehension of the self, you can then, that opens up that bridge to study you. And when you allow yourself to cross that bridge into that space to meet yourself, the inner child, I believe you become light. And when I hear like light worker, that coined phrase now, it's not just, light frequency that we can see or cannot see with our eyes or inner eye. To me, it's also weight. Dense energy is heavy. Light energy is light. And I love the double play, the double meaning of that. Light as in glowing, uplifting, seen, illuminated. Light as in you can fly, you can levitate, you're easily lifted, uplifted. Shadow work to me, or shadow worker, is someone who has the capacity of taking their light through self-study and taking it into the hidden aspects of their consciousness. Not someone who's taking the left-hand path and going down the, black magic and all that other stuff. That's a whole nother discussion for another video. I'm specifically talking about self-study, soul work, spiritual inner work. It doesn't have to be so complicated. I'm just sharing with you the simplicity of my approach. If it doesn't make any sense, I get it. That's okay. I don't take it personally. So, how can we redefine our past and give it a new definition? By authentically being ourselves, being our most honest, true version of ourselves, not painting ourselves, into something we're not, or painting the person that was with us, traumatizing us or causing a negative experience and painting them in a certain light. It's just allowing. I think, you know what? Try this. You have an unpleasant memory and you're a child. And this unpleasant memory, there's an adult, okay? A being in that moment having a human experience. And this is very difficult to do depending on the level of trauma you may or might have experienced with this person or persons. But peel back the layers of their adult body, and if you can, visually see their inner child and have an open conversation, whether through thought and meditation, journaling, maybe speaking it out. You get an object, you talk to the object and listen. Again, I'm not a licensed therapist, counselor, life coach, I'm just throwing some ideas out there that could possibly help somebody. But in some way, you connect with the inner child of the perpetrator, of the person who you feel has done you wrong. That's only possible to do that when you've had enough conversation and connection with your own inner child. Because it's very difficult to approach a old wound through the eyes of an adult, with the eyes of an adult. Right? If you look at the situation with the eyes of a child, in both roles, the victim, the perpetrator, victim, whatever the abuse was, whatever the trauma was, whatever the event or the conversation that hurt you was, you begin to expand beyond the limitation of that said event, that experience. Does this work? Maybe. I know for myself, instantly, it definitely, when I'm speaking to an adult and I'm not agreeing with what they're saying and the pain body is activated, after a while, I begin to see the inner child in them. Specifically, this has happened a lot. And not just if I'm like in disagreement. I could really like a person and they're speaking from a very traumatic space or broken place, or they're choosing to be vulnerable with me. I can literally see their inner child. And they have no clue, no idea, haven't made any effort into connecting to their inner child. And as they're talking, I can see the pain, the burden, the neglect. Because whatever has happened to our inner child, to our child self, we end up doing to ourselves as adults in many different ways, in different forms, because we're not allowing ourselves to get reacquainted with a broken piece of ourselves. An abandoned child will grow up into an adult that abandons his or her own feelings. Thus, in turn, will abandon the feelings of others. You see, the cycle begins again. Until you have people like myself, people out there, human beings that make that choice. It's all down to the power of choice. We can choose, always. So, rewriting your history, her story, you rewriting, redefining, reevaluating your child self. And it's painful. Ooh, yes. When that inner child pops up, you're like, it's something. It's a very profound experience. When I met my inner child, I literally felt more whole and more complete. And at that time in my life, I was going through a major shift. I was living out in the middle of the desert. I was working at a cashier at a Big Lots. I had no car. The temperature, oh God. I moved in like when the beginning of the fall back in 2016. So it was hot. The air was dry. I had no car to get to work. And it was, but I had the hot, like, I experienced such deep levels of peace and simplicity that I hadn't felt. I think that was my first time ever feeling that way. I lived a very monastic life. I had a bike from Walmart. I would bike myself to the grocery store with, put bags on both handles and pedal myself back all the way home. Practice yoga, Ashtanga, which I still do to this day. Meditate. And kept to myself and read and healed. And when I met my inner child, I will have to say that's when I truly began to open to my womanhood. Because before I met my inner child, I was lost. I was lost. I had no true, in the New Age community, it's all about ground yourself after ritual. Put your feet in the grass. Yes, do all that, okay? Yes, that's a form of grounding. That's important, all right? When you're on a high, you got to bring it back down and you got to integrate. And that's when when I began to meet different aspects of my consciousness, that to me is what defined grounded and or being grounded and integrated into this vessel. Because you, as a spiritualist, you cannot neglect the physical form. You must prepare the consciousness while you're in this vessel for its exit by living fully. By living fully. That's how you prepare to die. That's how you prepare for death, by dying before you die. If you believe what I just said is dark and gloomy, I will send out a prayer for you, because that's not about, it's not negative in the least. You live fully. We redefine our past by bringing and speaking and breathing and integrating and moving and listening and pulling in our inner child. Also, your inner child would give you, remember when I mentioned the keys of consciousness last month, right? About boundaries and all that. Guess who holds the keys? It's very specific keys. Your inner child. When your inner child feels safe, when you allow yourself to be safe with you, that means you don't struggle with loneliness, you don't struggle with low self-esteem and pettiness and anxiety to the point where it's so crippling that you're not living life fully. Get to know yourself. Don't run away. Much easier said than done. But I must go because I gotta start, like, paperwork. Oh, goodness. Again, thank you for your kindness and your support. Again, this channel isn't for the glitz and the glamour and the best high definition cameras and all that. Maybe, I'll invest in a better camera, I do wish I could be out in nature more, but it's the dead middle of winter right now, and it is so icy out. Oh gosh, I would love to do like a walk outside. So maybe if the snow melts a little bit, it gets a little bit warmer in the 30s, maybe I'll do a walk and talk, because I miss doing those. I miss the green, I miss the warmth, Sometimes I miss the desert, to be honest. And the high desert is amazing. It's so humbling. Living out in those regions in the Southwest was a very humbling experience. It's like you look up and there's still trees and more mountains for days, it feels like. And then you look down and there's the valley that drops like 200 feet below. It's and you see that all in one stride. It's like something that, living in the Midwest, it's just, there's a beauty here, but I will say the one thing I do like about the Midwest, the lakes, freshwater lakes. There's nothing can beat the sound of water. I look forward to this summer, to the spring, or the spring and the summer. I really do. I really, really do. But again, I'm just so grateful, and I definitely will take some days to myself. Don't worry. I usually try to stay on top of the pre-recordings and getting things out beforehand, but it's been hard to do this week. It's been hard to do. So thank you so much. May this message find you well and whole, and take care. Bye.